It's your favourite music back, oh Greek. The man they call the Gazelle.
Lovely that, and I put up my picture today of the latest Mankini range that I've got in Greece. That's gone very well on Facebook.
How are the Mankini sales going?
Through the roof.
So the factory went up in flames then, is that right?
Yeah, I've got loads of little Greek people working on about doing it, and they can't make them fast enough to get them in the shop.
Is that right? Oh, okay, all right. So we know that the Gazelle's in.
What Mark will do is Mark can put me a little Union Jack on next time instead of a George Frost. No. I think the Union Jack will absolutely fly in the Greek island.
Okay. Statsman, say hello.
Hello, hope we're all well. A big shout out to our lovely listeners. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes. And our guest this week is Councillor Simon Boone, Scourge of Cheshire West and Chester Council. Well,
Hooray.
Say hello, Simon.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. He's so enthusiastic. Can you just tell? He's just loving every minute of being on here. I'm going to edit every part of that. As soon as he goes, hello, I'm going to edit L-O-O. I'm going to say, that's a long one. Here we go. All right. I'm fading out the music now, Trevor. Is that okay with you?
Well, it is, yeah. I'm just dancing away, my feet are going and everything.
All right, okay. A lot of things have been happening in the news. Or, for Trevor, at the nudist beach, in the nudes. How was it, Trevor?
It was absolutely super. As I said, I went down to the nudist beach, as I was telling you last week. And as you know, I went down there. It was purely to record my vlogs. I have a YouTube page you can all check out if you wish. It was purely for research reasons. And as I was saying, I placed my furry little mic down under because obviously with the sun cream it wouldn't stick to my chest, so I had to hang it elsewhere. All right. Now, I don't know if you're aware.
Go on, boy.
No, don't know if you're aware or not, but when you go down there, I mean, I'm struggling to describe it actually, with it being a family podcast. But
it is a family podcast.
Yeah, they're very well groomed. They're very well groomed. That's easy.
All right, okay. We get it.
All the nudists are very well groomed. So I've got, this like a bit of, I caused a bit of a stir with me furry dongle. And basically, they all thought I was German. Now, anybody that knows. And if you don't, you'll have to research it yourself. But yeah, and they all thought I was German with my little hairy dongle. But it went down well. It's a good video.
Ich bin ausgezeichnend.
Yeah, I've got to edit it yet, but it'll be worth a while to watch.
Okay.
Wait,
fair enough. Stats, what have you been hearing?
Just misery.
Misery.
It's all miserable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think you hear. In fact, there was something good today. That policeman was cleared, wasn't he?
He was indeed, yeah. That was a good news story.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I heard that Starmer is trying to get back in with the traditional Brits in this country by saying that there will be no apology for slavery. And there certainly won't be any reparations. How about that? Bit of a slap in the face for Mr. Lammy. Don't you think? That's probably his first one to get him used to it when Donald Trump gets back in.
That's plenty of time for him. Plenty of time for a flip flop.
Yes, maybe so. Simon, what have you noticed? Anything good?
On the news?
Yeah.
Not a lot, no. I haven't watched a lot of news in the last week, to be honest.
Yeah, been a bit busy.
Been busy, yeah.
I tell you.
Yeah.
With the council meetings.
Oh, yeah. You can talk about that meeting if you want.
Is it like a pit fight? I mean, does Louise come out dressed in gladiator garb?
Well,
ready
the
to
first
do
thing
battle?
you notice, the first thing you notice when you attend is that it doesn't actually make any sense where anyone sits. So you'd expect that group, wouldn't you, the lead group, Labour, to be sat in different places than they are, but they're not. So you stick the naughty people on the front, which is, I'm on the front row with other naughty people. But to the public, it probably looks like we're running the place. It's quite comical.
You watched next meeting, you're all moved.
Yeah. I said that to see whether I'll end up at the back.
They do listen to the podcast, you know. They do listen to it. Yep. Oh, yeah.
Well, they don't listen to anything else, do they? So.
Wait a minute. Too many voices. Simon
Yeah, sorry.
first. Simon first. Simon first.
All
Right, that's it. Mute.
I do apologise. Carry on.
Mute it.
I said when you, in reply to your statement about them listening to this, I just said, well, they don't listen to anything else. So, but it's good to hear that they listen to this.
Oh yeah, they do. They especially know and Warrington do as well. The Gazelle is infamous in Warrington for his comments, because we used to run a mini show on the side called Warrenation Street. It was featuring Rusty Nail, aka Mr. Bowden, and all the stories that were coming out there leading up to 1.8 billion in debt. We loved doing that. That was good. That was a good show. Anyway, Simon.
But on Thursday, like you said, they didn't listen to anyone, including the two women that turned up to speak very passionately about their children who need help. So that was very disappointing, unethical, and appalling behaviour to actually sit in the chamber and listen to. I don't know whether you saw what happened, but basically all the Labour councillors voted to not even debate a reasonable motion put forward by Councillor Clare, Independent, and Adrian Waddle from the Conservative group.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's the point in anyone being there if you're not going to discuss how to help kids,
We've got a little clip of that. Let's see. And this shows how bad the audio is from the council meetings. Hold on. Let's have a listen.
It's sadly illustrative of how this council is run. As a former council officer, I remember the old days. And whilst they weren't perfect, I miss them. Finances are obscured from us under generalised budget headings, reducing the likelihood of meaningful challenge. When we ask a simple question, we are too often ignored, or the question is ducked. We are given subjective justifications for the undemocratic blocking of motions and told repeatedly, you can always email, instead of bringing this to full council, which again is frankly an insult to us all. Formal written questions are a vital public accountability mechanism, one of the very few that can't be brushed aside or ignored by the leadership. This isn't our own private club. On the live stream, we all look fuzzy and about 3 foot wide and sound like we're speaking from the inside of a fish tank, so it's a wonder anyone bothers to tune into these meetings at all.
I could vouch for that, listening to this.
The Labour group weren't whipped. Call me Mystic Meg, but I predict there will be a new limit on the number of formal written questions allowed per councillor in the very near future, even though we only have 8 more questions than there are councillors. If we were performing better, we'd have fewer questions and more accountability. Good leadership is all about taking responsibility, not blocking up ears. We are here to serve the public, not to hide from them. So if you value the public's trust and respect the parents who spoke so powerfully tonight, please do vote in support of this motion. And I would like a named vote, please, Chair.
Well, what happened there? Was there a named vote?
So I don't know whether you're familiar. I think Mark might be. I don't know whether... were you a former council? You were a former councillor, Mark.
Sadly, I've never been elected, which they're probably quite grateful for, because I'll be on the front row with you, mate.
Yeah,
in fact, I'll probably be outside.
It's the best row. But what happens is you to have a name vote, you have to ask for, I think it's 6 other people to stand up and agree that they want a name vote, and that happened. And there was probably about 25 people that stood up and asked for a name vote, and then the chief exec of Cheshire West, Delph Curtis, then reads out each councillor's name, and you have to say whether you're for or against. And all the Labour councillors en masse voted against. Quite shocking.
That's not what I call democracy. That's what I call everybody being primed beforehand. This is what you're going to do.
It's unethical, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Go ahead.
These 2 women, and they made them wait 2.5 hours to this point. 2.25 hours, I think they made them wait. And then that motion was then brought slightly forward to save them some time. And then they voted to not even speak about something as important as that. It makes you wonder why any of them are councillors.
Just to set a precedent here for people who don't really know how councils work, they basically were there to speak on behalf of their children. And they were completely ignored by the leadership of the council, because you don't get everybody voting against something like that unless there's been a direction from behind the scenes. It's as simple as that. So, Mark, we're going to give way to you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, the irony was the motion that Mandy put forward was actually about democratic values. So, of course, the Labour were whipped to vote that down. So that speaks volumes. But I just want to go back to Simon and just ask you, you've been in local council now for, was it 25 years?
My background. So I was a council officer for 4 authorities over a 25-year period. So I worked for Vale Royal Borough Council, then Macclesfield Borough Council, then Cheshire County Council briefly, and then Cheshire East Council. Finished up at Cheshire East Council, and I decided to leave Cheshire East Council due to them changing the rules on when you retired. So they stuck another 12 years on.
Whoa!
What we all thought we could retire on. The rule was, it was called the 85th rule. So your year's service plus your age, you could retire, which meant I could have retired last year. But I think I left in around 2012, something like that. I got out at the right time, I think.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
Did you feel when you were working for these places that they were all much of a muchness? Because at that time, Cheshire County Council, who was still there? Was it, who was the leader of the council then?
Oh, now you're asking. All I remember is that when I went from Vale Royal to Macclesfield Borough were quite the rebellious borough council.
Okay.
I quite like that. They basically stuck 2 fingers up to Cheshire County Council on a lot of things and went their own way. So it was great. And I think I was one of the last people that they took on before they were, of course, took over by Cheshire County Council, which then was split into 2 when Hazel Blair decided that was the best way forward.
Yeah.
And we got Cheshire East and West. And I think the kudos maybe and the reputation was lost then, if it had one, because it's not the same now. It's Cheshire East and West.
No, not at all. And also Cheshire East, when you have more cooks in the kitchen, there's more of a chance of the broth getting spoiled. And that's exactly what we're seeing here with Cheshire East and Cheshire West. At least you had a centralized point when there was one council covering both. Yes, but no. You had, let's not forget, we had the town councils still. Yeah. Then we had Vale Royal Borough, Congleton Borough. So there's I think the number of councillors within the Cheshire East and West area was probably more. You reckon? Yeah, I think it was. I think it ended up reducing the number of councillors. In theory, it was a good thing in one way, but in practice, it never ever shaped up to work. There's talk of it going back, isn't there, in some way, either Cheshire West with Warrington or Cheshire East and West. There's always talk of that going on, and there's a lot of shared services still. It's not completely split, has it ever? Well, we wouldn't want to share services with Cheshire East because they're closing down a lot of their recycling places. They're in a lot of debt, aren't they? Yeah, massive. They got almost as big as the leader in debt in our area, which is Warrington. How's your back passage doing, Trevor?
We're the main people in Warrington. The biggest debt, but the third biggest in the country, 1.8 billion and growing.
It's going to go up to something like about 2.3 billion, isn't it?
Well, it's estimated at 2.3 billion in 2026, I think it was.
There you go.
That was the last count. But I think all that's been put on hold at the minute because the government sent in people to check it, but you've heard nothing back since. That was in 2020, the beginning of 2024.
It's a bit like the EU, Trevor, because they could never actually come to a conclusion over the budget. And I bet you will never get to the bottom of what's going on at Warrington because there's something not quite right there when it gets to that point. And how those people
we've only just had the 2021
books
accounts signed off. 2021. So you're 2 or 3 years behind. And that's why they sent the this team in to look at it, which they've been in there for months and months and months, and you've heard nothing. People keep questioning it. Where are the results? What are you saying? And all of a sudden, the council leader.
Go ahead, Simon. What were you going to say?
Sorry, I mean, that was back then, 2021. That was the start of a lot of authorities sending everyone to work at home, and the failings just mounted up, didn't they? Everyone was trying to, after three, I don't know whether you've ever done it, but, 2012, when I started working from home, after 3 months working on a laptop on your kitchen table, your brain starts to frazzle. So you've got to set yourself up a reasonable workstation, big screen, multi-screens. And a lot of council employees, they're just not set up.
Yeah.
They're all ducking and diving at home on crap equipment. And you can see the results of it is a lot of frustration, a lot of deadlines being missed, a lot of miscommunication. And I think we've got to get them back in the office working together again.
Okay. Trevor, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine, her daughter works for home. She works for the council. And she's now ended up with agoraphobia. She is being treated at the minute for agoraphobia because she's struggling to get out of the house. I don't know whether the two are linked. I don't know. It's not been spoken about, but now Simon's mentioned it, and he's actually, bringing that up that it frazzles your brain. That she actually has got a problem at the moment to believe in the house. She's done therapy.
Okay, another question for Simon then. Simon, because your brain was frazzled at home, did that coerce you into leaving Labour?
Leaving Labour? Did you say?
Yeah.
Do you know the story about me and Labour?
No. Tell us.
It's quite a funny one. And they were on to me. But I'll give you a little bit of a background. I've lived in Winsford most of my life, and then I ended up living in Nantwich for a number of years. And then came back to Winsford when my mum was terminally ill in 2013. And at that time, I noticed there was a lot of adverts on billboards about the Winsford neighbourhood plan. And I've written quite a few neighbourhood plans for various councils up and down the country. And so I was intrigued by this neighbourhood plan because it was really, really new back then. A lot of the ones that we were writing hadn't been adopted. They were all in draft form. So I looked at this neighbourhood plan and I was like, it's awful. It's just lip service. It's not right. It needs to be more robust. So I started a campaign to basically delay the referendum on the neighbourhood plan. And it's 10 years ago this year. And I've been proven right. It should have been delayed. Nothing good has come from it. All the funding that they were promised has been gone. Anyway, just prior to that, I decided to join the local Labour Party, Labour group. I think it's called Winsford CLP Labour Group. And I went to a couple of their meetings to try and get a little bit of an in, to what was going on. And it was just appalling. No one spoke. There was a terrible atmosphere. And then immediately it was put under investigation, and it was quite comical.
Investigation for what? What did you do?
I just went along to it. I joined the Labour Party, filled in a form. Then a certain local councillor, who we'll probably discuss at great depth in a bit, put a blocker on my application, and it just ran and ran. All these really strange investigations that went nowhere. Meanwhile, I was paying my subscription and not being allowed to go to meetings, so I just left in the end.
Did you look like Jeremy Corbyn then?
Did I? I didn't like him at all, no.
No, did you look like him?
No.
All these investigations going on. That guy would face so many different...
When I say I joined the Labour Party, it was probably 4 months I joined for. That was it. And then what happened then? Then I decided, because I was always questioning them locally.
Okay.
And raising issues on like, what you're going to do? Where's the new homes bonus money going to go that we're getting from all these new builds? Are you familiar with what that new homes bonus grant money is?
Is what for play areas and stuff like that?
Yeah. So no, it's like, so for every new build house that's completed, the local, in this case, it was supposed to be Winsford Town Council were getting, say it was around 400 quid. I think it was a bit less.
Okay.
370 quid.
Oh yeah, I get it.
House.
I get it.
For 3 years, though. So it was a big chunk of change for roughly 5,500 houses over 3 years. So they got the neighbourhood plan through the referendum, and they had this list, like a wish list of all the things they were going to do, which was great in theory, but there was no way of actually making that happen. And then as predicted, I sat with the town clerk at the time and said, you're going to get this new homes bonus grant money took off you. And he said, well, we won't. And I said, well, you're going to, because Winsford Town Council traditionally, and I don't know whether you're familiar with this, but it's basically been Labour-led for over 50 years until recently. We'll talk about that in a bit. But it had a lot of people who wore two hats. So they were town councillors and borough councillors. So they would vote on things that helped the borough position rather than the town position. And one of the things that they voted on to remove, I was told by the town clerk at the time, was this new homes bonus grant money. So the Winsford Neighbourhood Plan was adopted, and then all the funds were took away to do anything with it. Hilarious. So nothing's happened. We've had no infrastructure. And then on top of that, the community infrastructure levies that most councils put onto a developer, that was nil rated for Winsford. So there was no income there. So all we got was loads of houses, loads of extra people, loads of extra pressure on services.
But none of the grants.
And the infrastructure. That was it. 10 years on, we're still in the same position.
So
we've got a lot less schools now because they've knocked them down and built on them.
So we're talking 2014, yeah?
Adopted in 2000. I started a campaign in 2013.
Yeah.
It was adopted in 2014. And then I started looking at things that local Labour councillors were doing to various residents. And then that got me banned twice for 6 months at a time from even communicating with Winsford Town Council, which was funny. And I think that was in the Labour councillors had the town mayor at the time was Nathan Pardo, and he held an emergency meeting, believe it or not, on New Year's Day 2021 to discuss implementing the vexatious policy against me for asking a question twice. So basically my email said, do I need to ask for an answer to this question again? And they took that as vexatious and banned me for 6 months. And then in June of the same year, when my ban was up, they then banned me again for another 6 months because I'd attended a public consultation and given some good feedback. The invitation of the town clerk didn't tell the Labour lot. My feedback was good for the community and accepted, but because I'd attended a meeting, they then banned me again for another 6 months.
Oh my word. Would you give way to Stats Man, please? He's got a comment to make. Go ahead, Stats.
Yeah, I can imagine at the beginning these investigations weren't because they actually had anything. They would have been done to find something. It's like what they do these days. They'll arrest people for nothing and then they'll find a crime. So this has been going on for a while. So that was obviously the start of your naughty step. And I was going to ask then and move on to why you were banned, but you've just answered that one. And it looks like you've been on the naughty step ever since, Simon. So what
happened? Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, what other experiences have you got with the council? Because I know Mandy spoke about you guys, you'd got a group together in Winsford and you'd been attacked there as well. So it just seems like you're just being attacked non-stop. They're doing the right thing. You know what I mean?
It goes back one stage earlier than that, Mark. What happened next was, it became pretty obvious that in 2019, there was no point taking on Labour and trying to get local councillors elected because Corbyn was riding high and this area that I live in were all Corbynites and there was no point. So we delayed it. But we had an intention of taking over the council. And then a friend and I, COVID hit, and a friend of mine who became a councillor, Dan Ford, we decided to do something during COVID. Just out of the blue, randomly, I had a conversation with a couple of friends and my dad, and we just said, do you know what, let's learn how to ride motorbikes and go on trips on motorbikes and maybe feed people on the streets from motorbikes. I had all these ideas. Anyway, we set it up. We all learned to ride motorbikes, got on motorbikes, adapted them, went off feeding people on the streets and putting on events and trips for people. And everyone was invited. Anyone was invited. You didn't even need to have a motorbike. Well, we bought motorbikes. And my relationship with the local council rocketed. I was approached by a couple of Cheshire West locality officers. And they were fantastic. They liked the idea. And they explained how we could get funding. And we got a lot of funding. We did a lot with it. And then the election was looming in the distance, 2023. And in 2022, we were just flying high, doing loads of things on motorbikes and taking people here, there and everywhere and raising money. And we were having a good time as well. And it was people getting a lot out of it. We're still doing it. Then this idea come back in my head. You know, they're so, I'll just say it as it is, they're so corrupt, these local Labour councillors in my town. They're corrupt, horrible, harassing, nasty people, all of them.
So say it like it is, Simon. You just don't like these people.
I've got nothing against them personally, but I think them as councillors, and bear in mind I've been around councillors all my working life, which is, 35 years. And they're not nice people. And I still don't understand why they're in these roles. Anyway, Dan Ford and myself, we got a lot of funding from various sources, including Louise Gittins, by the way, who sent us a nice letter after she gave us some funding through Space Aid. And we thought we'll build some bridges with the town council, put on an event for Winsford, get a little bit of funding and build some relationships. So we'd already tried to do it several other ways, but it just wasn't happening. We were bluntly refused on 2 occasions, to the point where my friend Dan was really upset, because it was so insulting what they'd said. And we walked out of that room, and that was in the November of 2022. And I said to Dan, don't worry, we'll take the council off him in May next year. And we did. We come up with an idea, got some good people involved, local people. We put a campaign together, and we stood 22 people in 22 local positions for 15 town council seats. A town council is just a parish council, by the way. Everybody's familiar with that. And then we stood 7 candidates in all 7 Cheshire West seats in the town. And we won 14 town council seats. And we won 3 of the 5 wards in Winsford and 3 of the 7 seats. And we made history. And
well,
it was really good.
I can honestly say that is a good position to be in. And it's also a good position for us to be in, because we can actually end that as part 1 right there. And then when we come back, we will actually be picking up with the Gazelle. So,
okay,
listen to how professional this is. Who wants to say end of part 1?
Go on then. End of part 1. Part 2 coming up soon.
Go on, Trevor, you have a go. It's like blowing out the birthday candles. Go on, end of part 1.
Hey, mate, I was going to say, that sounds like nice caller there, but I can't follow that and follow the call. But thank you, everybody, for listening to part 1, which is just finished. This is now the end of.
All I heard was...
we have our siesta.
All I heard
Sounds like
was...
you're in one of them council meetings.
End of part 1. That's all I heard.
And Mr. Boone keeps going on there, and I don't think he has any authority.
Hey, Jackie Weaver. Oh, sorry.